When you're in your 20s, you think you'll have life fully figured out by 30. I thought the same thing. I was wrong. Now, at 36, I've made enough mistakes to tell you which ones actually matter. Some of these I learned the hard way, others I just wish someone had said out loud. So here are the 7 things I wish I knew in my 20s, so you don't have to waste years learning them like I did. The truth is, there are people well into their 70s who still haven't figured life out. Not because they're incapable, but because they never built the habits or systems early on that would have made everything easier later. Becoming an adult isn't a switch that just flips at 30. It's something you grow into. And these lessons, they're how you do it faster. You think you have endless time until you realize you've been wasting it. Your 20s are strange. You're no longer a kid, but you don't feel like an adult either. You finally have freedom, no parents setting your schedule, no teachers dictating your time, and it's easy to think, I'll figure it out later. I started college right after high school, but I dropped out after a year to help my family. I told myself I'd go back soon, but soon turned into gaming, coasting, and convincing myself that I had all the time in the world. By the time I finally went back, I realized years had passed and I was far behind people I once sat next to in class. When I turned 30, I had that same realization. I looked at where my parents were at my age, looked at my own life, and thought, wait, time didn't just pause because I was figuring things out. You do have time, but your 20s are the best time to learn, to build, and to start stacking small wins. If I could go back and talk to my 22-year-old self, I'd tell him just spend 1 hour a day learning something. It doesn't even have to be the same thing every day, but be consistent about the learning. That 1 hour a day adds up to over 1,800 hours in 5 years, and that's how you build momentum. If you're not sure if you're drifting, you can test it by asking yourself, if a year passed and nothing changed, would I be okay with that? You don't need to rush your 20s, but you can't coast through them either. The things you delay now become the things you regret later. Chasing approval is a shortcut to nowhere. A little while after I bought my first used car, I ended up spending more on the sound system than what was probably the actual value of the car itself. I hated driving, but I wanted people to notice. The funny thing is, none of my friends even remember that sound system, but I remember the credit card balance. I told myself it was about taste, but really I was chasing validation, whether it was from friends, coworkers, or random people online. And it didn't stop there. I poured my time into being the best in online games, dressing a certain way, or doing things to prove I was doing well. But every time the novelty wore off, I needed another win. And that's when I learned validation never fills you up. It just makes you hungrier for more. Direction, on the other hand, feels different. It's quieter. It's doing something that moves you forward instead of sideways, even if you're not 100% certain where it leads yet. I didn't feel genuine direction until I made the decision to go back to school. Not because someone else told me to, but because I finally wanted more for myself. I started focusing on my career and the hobbies I'd ignored for years, and that gave me more purpose than any validation ever did. If you're feeling aimless right now, that's not failure, it's feedback. It's your mind's way of telling you that it's time to build something that matters to you. You don't need a 5-year plan, you just need a direction you're curious about and a reason to keep walking toward it. If you live for approval, you'll always need an audience. But if you live with a purpose, you'll eventually build one naturally. Short-term wins feel good, but long-term thinking builds peace. When my old car broke down, I convinced myself that buying a brand new one was responsible. I thought about the pros and cons and decided that I wanted something new because it would be better on gas, require minimal maintenance, and last me longer overall. I signed the papers, felt accomplished, and drove off the lot feeling like I'd made a smart adult decision, until I realized I'd basically taken out a loan on my ego. The truth is, a car's value drops the second you drive it off the lot. If I'd been thinking long-term, I would have realized that a reliable 5-year-old car would have given me all the same benefits, good gas mileage, minimal issues, at a fraction of the cost. The monthly payments would have been lighter, insurance cheaper, and the financial stress almost non-existent in comparison. Short-term wins are like sugar. They feel good now, but make the long run harder. It's the same with credit cards, impulse buys, and even career decisions that you make out of panic. Long-term thinking doesn't feel exciting. It feels boring, and that's why most people skip it. But boring is where peace starts. When I went back to school, I played the long game. Study, work, repeat. I was fully prepared to play the long game of breaking into a new career field after graduation because I assumed my lack of experience would mean months of job applications. But funny enough, it paid off faster than I expected. I had a job lined up before I even graduated. That's when I realized that long-term plans actually save you time in the end. Every small deposit you make toward your future self adds up, even when it doesn't look like much right now. Think of your future self as someone you're responsible for. Every habit you build now is a deposit for that version of you. Health doesn't wait for your schedule to clear up. In my late 20s, I had a headache that lasted 3 weeks straight. I was exhausted, moody, and foggy, and I had no idea why. Looking back, I'm pretty sure it was my body begging for sleep. At the time, I was staying up until 12:30 every night, gaming with friends, getting up at 6 a.m. for work, and then convincing myself that I could catch up on the weekends. But you can't catch up on neglect. Later, during the height of COVID, my routine got even worse. I changed from an active job to a sedentary job. I ordered constant takeout, and I was barely moving in my day-to-day. So I started walking. Just 30 minutes a day at first. It didn't fix everything, but it changed something. My energy, my focus, and my mood. If you want more energy to actually do the things you care about, health is the foundation. You can't chase your goals if you're constantly running on fumes. My brain felt foggy until my body started moving. I didn't realize how much my physical health affected my focus. Once I started exercising regularly, my workdays felt clearer, and I got more done, and I stopped carrying that mental to-do list home every night. Sometimes taking care of your body isn't just about the gym. It's about finally getting enough sleep to stop feeling like you're running on autopilot. Health isn't just diet. It's how you handle stress, sleep, and silence. Take care of your body before it forces you to. Preventing problems is easier than fixing them. Your job doesn't have to be your dream, it just has to support it. We're told growing up, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. They meant well, but they forgot to mention rent. Most people aren't in love with their jobs, and that's okay. And if you love what you do, that's amazing. But if you don't, you can still build a great life while figuring it out. Purpose doesn't have to come from your paycheck. Sometimes it comes from what you do after work. You don't need your 9 to 5 to fulfill you emotionally, it just needs to give you options. My first few jobs were in fast food, retail, and a movie theater that somehow always smelled like cat pee. Nobody there looked passionate. They just looked tired. But I learned something important from that. Work doesn't have to be your identity. It just needs to give you freedom to build one outside of it. Eventually, I found my way into the legal field. Not because I was passionate about it, but because I was interested. That interest made me want to learn more, improve, and grow. It paid my bills, and it funded what I was passionate about, like this channel. If you're torn between money and meaning, remember, you can build both, just not always at the same time. Let your job fund your curiosity, not crush it. Treat your 9 to 5 like an investor for your 5 to 9. Ask yourself, does your job fund your growth or just your stress? What if your job isn't supposed to fulfill you, just free you? Maybe its purpose is to give you the space and stability to figure out what you actually care about. Because here's the truth, not every passion needs to pay the bills, and not every paycheck has to drain your passion. The real question is, if your job ended tomorrow, would you still do it just because it feels right? Passion fades when it turns into pressure, but when you protect it by not forcing it to be your paycheck, it stays fun. Motivation fades. Systems last. In my 20s, I ran on energy and chaos. I always waited until I felt like doing something, which meant I was always behind. I thought I just needed more discipline, but discipline without structure doesn't last. Back then, my days were a blur. I'd lose track of deadlines, forget simple things, and end every week feeling like I was catching up from the week before. Before I had systems, I'd go to bed anxious about what I'd forgotten. Now, my days feel quieter. Once I started building small systems, things like weekly resets, Notion dashboards, or time blocking, life got lighter. I wasn't scrambling anymore. I could handle work, school, and other responsibilities and still have time to breathe. One of the simplest systems I still use is time blocking. In the evening, I set aside 30 minutes for additional exercise, 1 hour for studying, and 2 hours to relax. It's not rigid, it's realistic. Because systems aren't about control, they're about peace. If you don't build systems, you'll end up rebuilding yourself every week. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want, it's knowing your responsibilities are handled so you can do what you want. Confidence isn't a prerequisite, it's a byproduct. I used to think I needed confidence to start anything new. I told myself I'd start learning Japanese once I had the time, but I never magically found it. When I picked up archery again, I didn't expect to be great. Honestly, I just hoped I wouldn't embarrass myself. I started off shaky, shooting in the kids section, trying to remember the basics. But I kept showing up, week after week, and slowly I improved. Not because I felt confident, but because I stayed consistent. If I had waited to start until I felt ready, I'd still be waiting. Confidence isn't built the moment you win, it's built the hundreds of moments before that when no one's watching. The trick isn't feeling confident, it's acting like the person you're trying to become one step at a time. And remember, you don't need to start from scratch, you just need to start smarter. Don't wait to feel ready. Take the step, and the confidence will meet you along the way. Most of these lessons aren't complicated. They're just easy to ignore until it's too late. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight. Just start where you are with what you have. There are more tools and opportunities than ever before, but the real difference is choosing to use them. Your 20s aren't for perfection, they're for direction. And if you're in your 20s or early 30s, I hope this saves you some years. If you're past that, maybe it's just a reminder. It's never too late to start smarter. I started this channel to share what I've learned while figuring life out, but I'm still learning too. What's one thing you wish someone had told you sooner? Drop it in the comments. Someone watching probably needs to hear it too.